I'm Shelley Jones, Assistant Director of Alumni Engagement at Missouri State University. So the Alumni Association is the organization through which Missouri State University students continue their connection with MSU when they leave the university. The Alumni Association is a non-dues paying organization, and all of our alumni are viewed as members. So what are the BearTalks webinars? If you're new to our series, BearTalks webinars are our monthly professional development sessions, now available in a virtual format. So how the webinar will work today. We can't see or hear you. You'll use the Q&A feature for questions, and then we'll plan to incorporate the questions in at the end of the presentations. We will share our panelists' contact information in follow-up communication. So if your question doesn't get answered or you think of others, feel free to reach out to the panelists directly after the webinar. And unfortunately, due to time limitations, most likely we won't get to every question. So the October BearTalks webinar is going to be just a little bit different because this month we're going to be profiling two inspiring artists and alums. We're going to meet them, we're going to learn their stories, and we're going to find out how they got to where they are today. So our first alum, Andrea Earhart. Andrea is an artist most known for her photo op butterfly wing murals with locations in countries such as New Zealand, Iceland, South Africa, and beyond. And if you live in the Springfield area, you have probably seen her work all over town through her 417 Street Art Project. She paints commercial and residential murals both locally and nationally, and traveled for several years across the country painting with Bass Pro Shops. She also spends part of her time mentoring beginning artists through her online artist academy. Andrea joins us today from Springfield, Missouri. So welcome, Andrea.
Thank you.
And next we have Judith Fowler. And Judith joined Missouri State University as an assistant professor in 1997 and retired in 2014 as a professor emeritus. While at Missouri State, she served as the coordinator of the arts education program in the art and design department. And in fact, Andrea was one of her star pupils in one of her drawing classes. Judith is known for her work in a wide variety of painting and drawing media, and she has led several workshops, presented at national and international conferences, and even published a book of her work. In 1987, Judith became a nationally registered art therapist and founded an Art on Wheels art rescue program where she provided art therapy and specialized therapeutic art services to children whose communities had been devastated by Hurricane Katrina, Hurricane Rita, and the Joplin tornado in 2011. So Judith joins us from Joplin, Missouri. So welcome, Judith.
Thank you.
We thank you both for being here today, and let's go ahead and kick our webinar off with our street artist, Andrea Earhart.
Okay, so yeah, my name is Andrea Earhart. I am a muralist, street artist, whatever you want to call me. I painted the butterfly wings downtown. That's probably my most infamous painting here locally, my kind of claim to fame. They say you're not a sorority girl in Springfield if you have not got your picture taken in front of the butterfly wings. But I do not just paint wings. I paint a lot of different things, such as commercial and residential murals. Mostly I paint every single day, or every day, Monday through Friday. I'm actually painting a nursery flower fun pink room today, before and after this presentation. So commercial and residential murals takes up the most of my time, businesses and for people in their homes. And you know, it's funny because the more people I talk to, I realize that I'm one of the few people that is using every single bit of my degree from Missouri State University. So like we had mentioned, I studied business and a bit of art education and painting. And so I'm using just all of that. And so yeah, I got my BFA at Missouri State. And while I was still there, I used a bit of my business knowledge from starting out in having a general business minor my first year. And, you know, I started out with general business because I was like, okay, I'm good at math and I feel like I could get a general job with that. And it was at my second year at Missouri State where I was like, man, I really think my high school art teacher has just the best job in the world. And so I switched to art education and painting and then went on with that. But still, I retained my business minor, which really I use a lot of the business skills today. So I made a LLC, Paint It Red LLC, hence I am a ginger. So that's where the name came from. And this was my first large scale logo project about 7 years ago for Pitbull Power Sports. And as I learned from doing a bit of work on my own around town, I learned that every business loves their logo and they want it painted just about everywhere. So that's how I got my start, painting logos and lettering and a bunch of calligraphy and stuff for businesses around town. You know, I really only did a handful of things around town before I got the attention of Bass Pro Shops. So I started painting their logo in all of their different stores. And I got that job because through college and through starting a completely separate business, I networked a lot. I met a lot of people while I was in college in Springfield in the early college days. And yeah, I just met a ton of people. And this one person that I worked for, their Bass Pro Shops' logo painter was quitting, and they asked if I wanted to take their place, and I said, of course. So I started on with Bass Pro Shops about 7 years ago and painted their logos all over North America in their newly opening stores. We went to, all over Canada, Texas, Florida, all of those, everywhere. And so for about a year, I stuck to mostly just logos and lettering. And then after a while, as you've seen a lot of the amazing murals in Bass Pro Shops here locally, and if you go inside any Bass Pro Shops anywhere in the United States or Canada, every single thing is hand painted on the wall, which is, there's something to be said for that with a business. And I worked my way into murals like this one. This was one of my first ever really large scale mural projects. This one is in Vancouver, British Columbia, so Canada. And yeah, so working around a ton of different artists and more experienced artists than me. So Bass Pro Shops, they have an imagery team. And on that imagery team, you have about one logo artist, and then you have about 4 or 5 per store of muralists. So animal painters, landscape painters, and all of that. And I took a big interest in what they did. And these people are amazing. I mean, they painted for Disney. They are seasoned veterans in their field, much older than me, usually about 60s, 70s sometimes. And so I really took to them, and in the form of a student, and said, teach me everything you know. And so with them as my mentors and with working 60, 70 hours a week, that was our regular schedule. Being on the imagery team for a couple of years, so working that much, it really propelled my skills much faster than had I not gotten that job. So this is another mural, like I said, very large scale. And painting for Bass Pro Shops, they don't want you to just paint really good. They want you to paint very fast because they have a deadline and the store is opening in a month or 2 or a week. I painted this mural in, I think it was about 8 straight days. So 8 days, 12 hours plus a day, and just up there focused, just paint and brush to wall. And so just being in that environment, it really helped, prepare me to work for myself nowadays. So nowadays I'll do a mural in a day. And yeah, so Bass Pro Shops was a huge learning experience for me, and it was amazing. I loved it. So, but Bass Pro Shops, they stopped building new stores, really. So with the recent merger with Cabela's, they aren't building as many stores. And so I was on the traveling team doing the newly opening stores. And so they don't need it as much anymore, which is not a super bad thing, because if anybody has traveled for their job for long enough, you really you get a little tired of of sleeping in a hotel room. So it's really, really nice to sleep in my own bed. I do a lot of work locally nowadays, and it's really great to be able to stretch my marketing wings as well. So after Bass Pro Shops slowed down, this was about 3 years ago, I started the 417 Street Art Project. And so the butterfly wings were the very first street art project that I had ever done here locally. And this was number 2 and 3, I believe. So these are photo ops, and it was very, very strategic on my part with doing art like this, because my theory was, if you painted something, beautiful and fun on the side of a building, I mean, that would enhance the community and all. But if you painted something that had a space empty that the viewer could go then put themselves in, and then the thought was they would take a picture just like this, and then they would post it online on social media, which it did both beautifying the community, and it also was advertising for my art business. So this was very, very intentional. Anytime I would pitch a business a mural, I would really just try to work in a spot to where you could leave for the viewer to fill. That way they would take a photo. People love posting photos of themselves online, and sometimes they would tag me, and it was great exposure. And for artists, the word exposure, you can't get enough of it. So started doing these around town. I also pitched this to Rob Blevins here. He is also an MSU grad, and he was so kind as to listen to the pitch and be completely on board and help with a ton of this project on the side of the Discovery Center. He helped get all the funding for it. Rob was awesome. And so we did one of these, and just the idea of the 417 Street Art Project, we put a hashtag on there. So as you can see on the bottom left down there, it says hashtag 417 Street Art. So the idea was that people would see the hashtag, they would use it on mostly Instagram, but some Facebook, and it would kind of connect all of these different pieces around town. And then we started doing ones outside of Springfield. This one was done up in Branson. And yeah, so street art that can, just leave a spot for people, something that really just catches your eye and people want to take photos with, and it not just, benefits me as an artist growing it. In the beginning, I would have to pitch it to businesses like, hey, people are going to come in, they're going to take photos, they're going to post it online, and they're going to tag your business. And so nowadays, I don't have to pitch that as much. It's more of a known thing. People more so come to me now for this, so it's a lot less negotiating and convincing, and now it's more of a proven thing about 3 years later. And so this works really well. So for anybody that has a business who might have an exterior or interior wall that they want to do something fun with, this is a really great way to get exposure for your business, because people are social sharing it organically, and it's just a really great way to bring people into the business. So I mentioned that I started doing it more outside of Springfield. So this is part of my Worldwide Wings project that I started. So I figured if everybody loved the wings downtown, they would love them in other parts of the world. It wasn't just Springfieldians who would love it, everybody would love it. So I took this idea and I pitched it to other parts of the world, really. And I started doing them at first for free, mostly because I would pitch it to schools and really anybody who would take a butterfly. And the idea was to basically show people what I could do and give someone the idea to then hire me for your business outside of Springfield. And so now I did a lot of these for free in the beginning. Now I am in turn getting called to do a lot of these butterfly wings outside of Springfield. Like I just did one. I just flew to California to do one for a popular makeup company, and I have a couple on the East Coast coming up. And so basically, just to give you ideas around where the world these are, the top left is at the Dickerson Park Zoo. If you have not been to the zoo, once you go, you'll see a bunch of butterflies and peacocks and eagle wings and a bunch of different things that we've done. The zoo was one of the first people to really get on board with this street art project in general in the very beginning. So huge shout out to the Dickerson Park Zoo. So, and then in the top middle is an Aruba. top right is in South Africa. There's my husband, Ryan. He's also really big into this with me. He's my salesman, negotiator, everything. So if I ever say we, I'm definitely talking about my husband. He does a lot with me and it's great. So, and then bottom right is the first one we ever did, which is in New Zealand. I pitched it. I just sent a proposal from here sitting at my desk to a school in New Zealand where we were already going to be. My husband and I, we travel quite a bit. We've been to all 7 continents. Tried to paint in Antarctica. Didn't happen. That's okay. But we've got the other 6. And then bottom middle is Iceland and bottom left is in Thailand. So this is the Worldwide Wings project. This is probably partially what I'm most known for online as well. And one way that I've been able to do all of this and get a little bit of credibility and to then be hired to fly out to California and the East Coast and all places was by building an online presence. So doing the 417 Street Art Project and having like local recommendations was really big to growing locally. And my Worldwide Wings project is basically that on a larger scale, more on Instagram. So here is my social media that I've worked very hard to grow in the last couple of years. So we have TikTok. If you guys aren't into TikTok yet, it's not just for the kids anymore. Businesses are on it. Ads are going out on it. It's definitely a new thing. So I discovered TikTok about a little over a year ago and was just amazed by that platform and how quickly you can organically grow and how you get the word out. And so I've grown quite a bit of following on there. And then Instagram is a bit harder. And so just been growing on Instagram. Again, I have the 417 Street Art Project hashtagged up on the top right there, just to show people right when you get to my profile, and you can click on it and see all the stuff that I've done around town, and any other artist that has done it around town. Any other artist is definitely welcome to add to the 417 Street Art Project. It's meant to be a community-wide thing to really just beautify our city. It's spring built a blank canvas even still, and there's so much room for art, and I and other artists plan to fill it. So with growing social media, and that could be a whole presentation in its own, just, with engagement and reach and all the things on social media. That has been a really, really big proponent into how I've been able to grow my art business as quickly as I have. And so whenever I was when I was growing my Instagram and growing my TikTok and all of that, I started getting a lot of messages from other artists who were then following me from all over the world and some locally. And they were asking, how are you doing this? How are you making a living at this? I want to paint a mural. What kind of paint do I use? All these different questions kept coming up. And I'm like, there's a business opportunity here. And really there's an opportunity in general to just educate. And so now I am definitely using my art education classes that Judith taught me and using a lot of that to now teach a lot of artists purely online. We've had one mural meetup where we met up and we painted a bunch of murals, but other than that, it's 100% online. And I have 100 students and I teach them painting and also the business side of art. So I consider myself very equally left and right brained. So which helps me out a ton growing my art business, because it very much is a business. And I think that's where there's a little bit of a disconnect with a lot of artists online and really anywhere. And they, you love to paint, but you don't love to go out and get a customer and focus on customer service and just do billing and just all those things that a normal business has to do. So I focus mostly on art business with my podcast and through the Artist Academy membership. Like I said, I have 100 online students and it is currently growing. I started that a year ago. And so that is now one of my main focuses. I usually do about one day per week I'll schedule for this, and then the other 4 to 5 days per week I will be painting. And so yeah, that's it. So yeah, I'm so excited for you guys to hear from Judith. I remember being in her drawing classes at first and then into the art education classes, and she was just absolutely great. And I think this is a pinch me moment to be presenting with the same presentation with her. So I'm so excited for you guys to hear now Judith. So thank you.
Well, thank you, Andrea. If you became inspired by Andrea's presentation, which who wouldn't be really, she is going to be back with us on Friday, October 16th at 6 p.m. She is going to be leading our homecoming virtual Paint a Bear project. So we'll have information in the follow-up email that we'll be sending to all registrants later today, letting you all know how you can get registered for that activity. I will tell you though, if you want us to provide your painting supplies, you need to do that quickly because I think we only had about 6 kits left. And so we'll save you the hassle and you don't have to go out and hunt your supplies. But we're really looking forward to that, Andrea. So let's go ahead and move on to our next presenter, our professor, Judith Fowler. Welcome, Judith. Let's go on to our next presenter.
All right. First of all, I want to say, wow, following Andrea is going to be hard. But let me start with my art journey. This is going to be very fast, and it's just kind of a snapshot of many, many years. Let me tell you, many years. And I'm going to start with saying first, I retired with 45 years of teaching, so I won't be talking about that, but 45 years of teaching in higher education. I spent a couple of years as an art supervisor in the Carthage School before I had children, so that's the very beginning of my career. But I also have an art therapy national registration. And so I had a lot of training in that. And at that time, it was like 2,500 hours of internship and experience. And I even went to Paris, France to do some of my work at Institut Curie and worked with children that had cancer. And so let me talk about art therapy for just a second. I'll show you some links to get more information. But with this, I didn't really practice separately because I was teaching full-time at Missouri State. And so I've mostly been a consultant with art therapy. And then I also do workshops and I taught a class at Missouri State for art therapy. But it's a graduate degree, so it's really hard to find the schools that you can get the training. But one of the main highlights with my art therapy, I was on sabbatical and in 2005 and 2005, and so Hurricane Katrina and Rita came along, and I was going to send some supplies, and I thought this isn't going to do much at all, and so I thought, okay, I'll just get a few supplies from donations and such. And so that turned into a week. It turned into a couple of weeks. In fact, my entire sabbatical was dealing with Art on Wheels. I called it Art on Wheels because I had a 16-passenger van from Missouri State, and my son and I filled it with all of these art supplies, clear to the top. And there's a story about all of that travel and everything. But so it's an art rescue program, and I contacted the Louisiana art therapist because I told them I'd just bring the supplies and they could do their magic and do the workshops. So if you want to show the next slide, it'll show the different pages that if you get on my website, you'll see that it's Art on Wheels missouri.net. So write that down so you could get it. You could also probably Google it, but you might get some motorcycle companies that are called Art on Wheels. I don't know. But anyway, so we took a van load of art supplies, maybe around $4,000 worth of art supplies. I had art supplies donated from all over the state. Faculty members from Missouri State donated supplies. There were people all over that felt a need that, if someone was going to take some materials to Louisiana and help, then here was this band that was going. And so you can see on the right-hand side that it says, if you go on the website, you'll see that the home, more information about the home. It talks about and shows pictures of Hurricanes Rita and Katrina. And it also talks about the Joplin tornado. Now, Art on Wheels goes silent in between natural disasters. And so a few years later, then the Joplin tornado happened. And I thought, okay, now here we go. We're going to get art supplies. I was a little more experienced at this time. And so I had some friends that art therapists, and then also the Missouri Art Education Association helped. And once again, I had lots of donations. I had people all over the United States wanting to donate because they wanted to give too, but they didn't know how. And so it was a win-win, you know, both the clients and the students and everyone had therapeutic art sessions, but the people that donated and helped teach these programs were able to help. But we had an art therapy camp at the Lafayette Women's House in Joplin. We worked at the the Family Y's in Joplin. And so art teachers would come up and they would observe me teaching a session with some children. And then they would also do a session. But we were running therapeutic art classes all day, you know, all week for these Family Y's. We also did a few churches, and so I had my art therapy rescue teams. And if a teacher wanted to do some therapeutic work at, you know, her location, then I would give her a tub full of art supplies. So right now, there isn't any art on wheels going on. The pandemic is not a good place to have this type of work going on. In fact, I've had some workshops canceled because of the pandemic. I had a workshop in Kansas City scheduled, and so that's put on hold for a while. But Art on Wheels is you know, you can find out more about it. Look at all of the links that I have on this slide. So let me move on because I'm just doing snippets of this art career. And so that's the art therapy, the Art on Wheels Art Rescue. And it's a story in itself. So the next slide, please. The next is my exploration of the art of egg tempera. And I've worked in all media, but I decided I'd try this ancient painting media, and it involves using an egg yolk, water, and pigment. And so it's kind of a tedious process. It's like pen and ink drawing, you know, a lot of cross-hatching to get tones and everything. But the pictures you see are just part of say, a larger picture, but they're all only 12 inches by 12 inches or 16 inches by 16 inches. I have one that's 18 inches by 18 inches. I like working in the square for this media, but it's been a fun journey exploring this. I have 20 of these pieces now. And so I have a show in Kansas City in 2021, if it's not canceled, I don't know. But that'll be the first showing of all 20 of these pieces. I plan to do a second book of the 20 pieces. And that way someone could buy a book and have all of the pictures. People have asked me, would I sell them? And they're so tedious, they take forever to paint. And so I hate to break up the series. And so I think the book is a good way to make it to where someone could have 20 pictures for a very minimal cost. And so here you see me painting. You can see the size of the canvas. And I'll show you just kind of another little humorous picture. Most of them are just humorous, dreamlike imagery. And so it's just the little boxes. I love working on with these little boxes. And so you can see that the images are very detailed. It takes a lot of layers. And so there's maybe 10, 15 layers to each piece. So it takes a long time. Okay, let's do the next slide, please. Okay, now, besides, I've had like maybe 4 or 5 studios in the past, and I have one still in Springfield. I have one at our place in Carthage, and then I have one here in Joplin. But I decided last summer that I would do a pop-up gallery. And so we were painting our walls, and I thought, okay, just take my collection down and have a show. So I had a 5-month show. It turned into 5 months in Carthage, on the Carthage Square. And it was really fun. I enjoyed it. I got to see all of my work. It wasn't really all of it, but a good amount, about 75 pieces. And most of them were 6 by 8 foot paintings and drawings. And I didn't even show the little egg temperas because it was more of a retrospective of, former works. On the left, you see frogs. That was just a painting demonstration that I did for a class. And so I have a series of toads, and then a series of pigs and different animals. I think the animals are kind of fun. And so in the middle, you see one of the egg tempera paintings, and it's just a little guy. And then the one on the right is another egg tempera. I was having trouble getting the slides on this. They just wouldn't transfer for some reason. But the pop-up gallery was fun. I have a lot more pictures of that, and we had openings. I had people from all over show up. Of course, I had a lot more people from Springfield drive up because, it seems like I know so many more people there. I had people from Kansas City show up. In fact, that's where I got the art therapy gig that I hope to be doing next year. And so it was really fun to have that. Let me see, how about the next slide? Okay, now the last phase of this journey, besides going to large paintings, I'm now starting back on my large paintings. I have several going right now, probably 6 by 8 foot and a little bit larger than that. So I'm thinking about doing this second book, but let me talk about this first book that I did. It's called An Angel a Day. And after retirement, I couldn't figure out what I was going to do. So I thought, okay, this is called rewirement instead of retirement. So I think, I'll make a publication of these drawings. I did one angel a day, all during December in 2017. And so by the end of December, I had quite a few drawings. And I thought, well, these will just be, thrown away eventually. So that I'll make a book of this. And then, people that enjoy my little angel drawings will have 46 to 48 drawings in a little book. And it took a year to do this. I didn't want to do the normal self-published vanity type press, and because that's a completely different thing. It's more limited in terms of papers and formats and things. So I thought, no, I've got to have this the offset process, and that's a little bit different process. And and I wanted my own books so I could use them for workshops and all. So I had to think of these things. I found a printer in Minnesota that was willing to do this, and so it took a long time to get it the way I wanted it. And so I had these printed on 100-pound paper, archival paper, because a lot of people like to just cut these images out and frame them themselves, and that's what I wanted. And each page, the image is on one page, and then there's a prompt on the facing page, and that just helps people journal in the book. It's called an illustrated journal, so it doesn't have any text as far as the storyline goes, because that's another set of thought there. But they're little 5 by 7 drawings, and the book is hardbound, and the cover has a drawing or watercolor that I'd done that I think someone purchased that a long time ago. But anyway, it has the embossed text on the front. We had to outsource that from some other state. And because most book publishers, they like to do the embossment on a dust cover, but not on the actual hardbound book. So I had to have it that way. I don't think I'll go into this much of detail for the egg tempera book that I want to make, but it'll be full color. And so it'll be an entirely different thing. But I do have these little books, and I think I've probably I've sold quite a few of them. And, but yet I think I've probably donated some, in workshops and things like that, and just friends. And I wanted them to be where they should be, you know, and all of these books have found their way to someone that really needed them. And I'm going to kind of hold this up, and you can see about the size and what it looks like inside. So these angels are not your normal angels. They're really whimsical. Some of them are rather obtuse. I didn't sketch them first in pencil, so I just drew them, and it did kind of, when you look at all of the images, you could tell I was in a different mood for each one of them. And then this one, I just pasted, this is my sample book, and so I pasted some 4-leaf clovers in it, and you could see that it has writing, and so you could do different things with this, and I write in different ways, also adding, you know, so people could add more lines to it. Someone like Andrea could really go to town with this because she'd really draw into it. But, you know, they're kind of interesting little characters. The book has something like, it'll say something like, I don't know if this thing, sometimes we toot our horn for various reasons, but can you think of a time when you highlighted someone else's success instead of your own? So there's just little prompts on each facing page for this angel book. And so here's the back cover. It gives a little blurb about myself. But it was a journey in just making it. So I tried different things over time besides teaching. I've always loved teaching, and I love to inspire others. Andrea was already talented beyond talent when she came to my class, but the art therapy has been wonderful. I see that it's part of the teaching, and I've always incorporated it in my teaching. And now the bookmaking is fun, and I think that will be part of my art therapy workshops instead of, I don't do individual therapy sessions or anything. But that's about it in terms of what I've done. I don't know what my time's like right now. Do I have more time or what?
You can go a little bit longer if you want.
Okay. I thought I'd watch the clock, but then, you know, once you get to talking, you don't watch those things. But this book is what I wanted to talk about just a little bit more, because it is something that can fit in a purse, a backpack, and it really, I use it when I go to a doctor's appointment, and I find that I'll journal in this, and I know a lot of people have painted in it, you know, and you could put all sorts of things in this. They're all different. You could see that some of them are a little more kind of casual. Some of them are completely different. They'll have little additional images on them. I don't know if you can see this very clearly, but this is one of my favorite ones. I must have been in quite a humorous mood. April is quite, see there's the days of December in this book, and then there's one picture for each month of the rest of the year. And someone said, well, why don't you do another book for each month? And I thought, well, I don't know if I'll do that. But this one talks about April, and it says, April is quite a sassy season, warm one day and cold the next, maybe even freezing. Thus it seems appropriate that an angel named Kit Kat Sassafras would represent such a blustery month. What is she saying or singing to her bird? How do you communicate to nature? So even though these are angels, they're not really, you know, the typical ones. And so there's some funny ones in here. Here's one just, you know, with a little horn that she's blowing. And here's one that she's traveling along. I felt like this one was kind of walking and traveling. And this one's called Walking Through Time with Nature by Her Side. This lovely angel brings you a special message about motivation, patience, and perseverance. What do these 3 words mean to you? See, so a person could think, okay, I'll write to that if I can't think of any. But I usually just write anything, you know, it's like a regular journal for me. And then here's another one. I kind of like her. I like her hair flowing back. So these are all just little creative projects. And so it's all in one book. And they, for this workshop in Kansas City, I'll have each member have a book. And then a lot of times I'll Xerox maybe 5 or 6 of them out of the book, make a spiral notebook, and then we talk about that as far as, you know, how they relate to this text or the prompt or the image. And so it's been kind of fun to have this. I don't know, I think the egg tempera book will be fun. Of course, it'll probably be awfully expensive. So I don't know, I may have to go the traditional digital type of printing for that, but we'll just see. And it should be another fun part of this journey. I'm retired, yet I find that I'm busier than ever. And like I said, I'm working in my studio here in Joplin on some large pieces, and they're kind of humorous right now. So that must be, I don't know, maybe this pandemic has brought out the humor in me or something, or my brain's going, I don't know. But anyway, it's kind of fun. And so we'll just see. And if you have any questions, I think that I'd be glad to answer them. It's best if you have detailed questions about art therapy to send an email to me. I've already answered one, and a lot of times I'll answer people that are going through a graduate program in art therapy, and so maybe they're doing some training. I had some Missouri Southern students in psychology you know, want some hours. And so they came out to my studio for 5 hours, and we talked about art therapy and everything. So they earned some hours that way. But if you have any questions, do feel free to send me an email, and I'd be glad to try to help you in some way.
Well, thank you, Judith. Thank you so much for that wonderful presentation. So we'll go ahead and have everybody, Andrea, join us again, and we have our questions that we can go ahead and go through. So, all right, we've had a few come in advance, and then we've had some also that have come in through the Q&A. So Andrea, I think let's start with you first. This question, what has been your favorite mural and why?
Yeah, so my favorite mural is probably the butterfly wings downtown, mostly because that was the first street art piece, and I'm always trying to outdo that dang butterfly. Like everybody loves it a lot more than I thought they were going to, and I've gotten a lot of other opportunities from it. So the butterfly.
Oh, great. And kind of speaking on the butterfly, we had a question come in. Did you paint the butterfly wings that were in the Omaha Baseball Village in Omaha, Nebraska at the College World Series a couple of years ago?
Nope, that was not me.
Wow. Okay, so we've got that one answered. All righty. So Judith, what motivated you to start doing what you're doing? What was that moment that made you realize that you wanted to go into art therapy?
Okay. I always thought that art was to be therapeutic. And I've always been interested in psychology. And so I thought, well, I'll just do that. I'll combine my teaching and my experience in raising kids, and I'll get my art therapy certification. And that way I could combine art and psychology. Well, it took me 5 years to get my registration and my training. And because I didn't go through because I already had my master's degree, I didn't need to go through a school to get my master's in art therapy. So I got all the training in art therapy myself, and that was very difficult. At the time, it was 2,500 hours. I think now it's 1,500 hours, like your psychology certifications are. But I tried to get out of it and get it, I said, well, I've been teaching, I've raised kids, and so surely I don't have to have 2,500 hours. And they said, absolutely not. And I learned that, a person needs that because it is more in between art and medicine. Real art therapy from a registered certified art therapist is more or less art psychotherapy. And so it's completely different from what we think. We think, oh, it's just kind of, you know, getting people to do bean paintings and stuff like that, and or just something simple. And it's not like that. So usually there's a diagnosis. And so art is used as the communication tool between the therapist and the client or the student. And so it's like a telephone cord. And so you really have to know your business, because I have found that art is so powerful. And I'm sure Andrea has found this too, that once people are working on something, all of a sudden they become transformed and they get really into it. And it becomes part of their, their day. I mean, they are so absorbed. And so it can be very therapeutic. So art therapy and therapeutic art are two different things. Now, art therapists use therapeutic art to work with the art, but yet it's not the same as, you know, having a diagnosis and writing, the progress of how someone copes with it. But my training was K through 12 kids, clear to people that were 98 years old. I worked in the Burrell Center and all of its branches. And it was quite a journey. It was really difficult. And, but I did it all, and it was interesting in Paris, France. And in terms of working with kids that didn't speak English at all, but we managed, and I got my hours there, and I was like Andrea, I was already going to be there, and for my art, just, you know, traveling, and so I arranged that and to get some hours there, but it's a combination of art and psychiatry and psychology, and so I just, you know, enjoyed it. I find that I like to see how people react to art, and I like to see art help them. And that's in my teaching, all of the drawing classes, I could see people progress, and their self-esteem, depending on how I work with them, their self-esteem is increased. If they find that, you know, they have no talent at all at first, then they all of a sudden have this talent. They emerged from nothing to something. It's really rewarding for me to see that, and I love to see that. But I also like to do the workshops where I could teach other people to do, to take that and do what I've done. It's like having 10 of me or more out there, so that's a good part of teaching, but yet art is powerful.
All right, well, thank you. All righty, how can you become financially stable as an artist?
I think Andrea is probably better at that because I've been teaching, so that's a pretty standard way of earning a living, and then painting on the side. But Andrea, you're so good at this.
Yeah, and it's funny, whenever I was at Missouri State, I had no idea that I could be a working artist, and mostly because Instagram wasn't there. Well, it wasn't a thing back then either, so I wasn't online seeing other people doing it. I was like, so I thought about going into teaching, which I love, but ended up, doing logos and all of that. But so my main advice for someone who wants to make art a full-time business is to really treat it like a business. And I think that's where a lot of artists maybe have a little bit of a disconnect, and because we all love to paint, we all love to draw, we want to just do our thing, and we miss the whole, okay, well, how do you make money as an artist? You need a customer. How do you get a customer? Well, you've got to go out, you got to go where your customers are. And so I wish that there was just one generic answer for this, but there's so many ways to make money as an artist. You just have to find your niche. Like mine is murals and photo op art. You could do illustration, you could do card. Oh, actually, if anybody is interested in being a caricature artist, there's none in Springfield. We do not have one because we have to, yeah. And so that it's finding a gap where maybe something is needed that you could fill. So I'm doing photo op art. So if you see that, you're like, that's cool, I might want to do that. Maybe think of a different avenue of like, hey, maybe I could do caricature artists, or really there's not a lot of illustrators around here either. Or, Springfield's an amazing town to start a business. It really is. The cost of living is super low. It's really easy to meet people. You can literally just walk into a lot of businesses, which actually on Monday, I'm about to go walk into a lot of businesses and be like, hi, do you want your windows painted for the holidays? And it's a lot harder to do that. And a place like New York and a place where art is a lot more saturated. And another thing, and I'll wrap this up with, a lot of people think that you have to move to Miami or LA or New York to be an artist. And I think we have such an advantage living in a small town because art isn't overly saturated here. And it's a lot easier to stand out in your specific niche here as opposed to competing with the big dogs in Miami and all of that other places. So I think treating it like a business. And if you need help with that, if anybody needs help with that, I teach the business side of art and I would love to help you. I like to talk about the subject all day.
Fantastic.
I think
Great.
that universities should have a business side in the art department. You know.
I totally agree. I totally agree. You know, and I even thought about maybe like going back and getting my master's so that I could pitch them that and so that I could teach that, but I don't know.
Well, they really need it, and I've always said this for years, and because I went to an entrepreneur class, a series, and that really helped, but I didn't, you know, I was teaching and didn't have the time to really implement it. But I think that they really need a class, you know, that would be what you know, what do you do with the degree that you have, you know, because a lot of students don't know, you know, what to do. You know, once you get out, you think, oh no, now what do I do? And it's really difficult, you know, you have to have that business side of it, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. So Professor Fowler, what are your suggestions for at-home art therapy to help relieve the stress during COVID?
Okay, I would first just go to the store and get a big block of those paper plates, not the styrofoam plates, the round ones. Get some markers, get some crayons, and just have them out for your family. And you can have them draw pictures of the design masks that people wear. And that would help them cope with having to wear masks at school, for one thing. It will make them not feel like it's so strange, because obviously that's going to do a little bit of psychological, I hate to say damage, but it's going to be something to deal with. But if kids are working with it and drawing, you know, with markers, just something simple like markers or crayons, then they find it a little bit easier to cope with that. I used to have my kids, you know, draw, and on Christmas morning when they'd be so wound up from unwrapping toys, all of a sudden it'd all be someplace drawing on their paper plates because they were just anxious after all that Christmas hype and everything. And I thought, that's interesting how they all had to go back to drawing. And so you could have kids go on a scavenger hunt, you know, find things and just, but simple supplies. That's like art therapists learn that you don't get into really exotic supplies that could be toxic, but anything that people are used to, like crayons and pencils, markers, that's non-threatening to most people. And so just something very simple, paper plates, because you know those are cheap, and then people don't think I'm going to waste paper.
Also, so thank you all for joining us this afternoon. We hope that you enjoyed what you heard today and were inspired by our panelists' stories. If you have suggestions on topics or alumni speakers, please include them on the survey that you will be receiving later today. Again, we will be including contact information for our panelists in our follow-up email. So I know there were several questions that we did not get to, so feel free to reach out to them directly, and they're happy to visit with you. So our next BearTalks webinar will be Thursday, November 5th from noon to 1 p.m. Central Time. And next month will be a chat with faculty member, alum, and New York Times best-selling author, Nancy Allen. You are sure to be inspired by her tenacity and perseverance as she's worked her way into this publishing world. So we'll include some links in the follow-up email so that you can register for the November webinar, as well as homecoming activities and more. So looks like we do just have a couple last minutes. Judith or Andrea, do you have any last minute things you would like to share with the group?
Andrea? Just look at art, enjoy things, know that nature's art, and just try to express yourself. You don't have to be famous to do it, but just, you know, express yourself, even if it's on a paper plate. That'll help you get through this COVID stuff, you know, so.
Right, right. Well, thank you again, everyone, for attending, and have a terrific afternoon.